Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome. Jennifer, I see you out there. Saw you log in. How you doing? Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing, Steve?
Good, 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 good. We've got a bunch of uncameraed people joining us today. So if you're there, folks, I'd like you to see those smiling attorney faces or team leaders or whatever smiling face you got. That'd be great. William, thank you. Good to see you. Robert, how are you? Good to see you.
Good.
Good, good, good. Thank you. The new Jennifer. Hey, Jennifer, how are you? Welcome. Erica, welcome. Thank you. Another Jennifer. We got 3 Jennifers today. I'm going to be exhausted saying Jennifer. So you guys have to work with me. All right.
Jennifer was the most popular name in the early 70s.
You are leading the name fashion curve here. So welcome, welcome. Lawrence, welcome. How you doing? Welcome, welcome. So welcome everybody. We have about 30 minutes together and I'm going to go through a lot of content very quickly just to kind of introduce myself briefly as I harass my 3 new favorite Jennifers. My name is Steve Riley. I am one of the shareholders at Atticus. I have spent, I don't know, 25, 30 years as an attorney. Past 10 years, I've been working with Atticus as a coach and consultant. So I spent about 10 years as a trial lawyer. Litigated all kinds of crazy cases, really built a nice PI practice, plaintiff's practice, and then pivoted into estate planning and elder law, which in itself is a whole funny story, but a very productive career. And then the past 10 plus years, I've been working in the other side, I guess, are working with Atticus, helping lawyers build their practice. Now, if you're new to Atticus, we're really, at the end of the day, about a 30-year-old, 35-year-old consulting company, and we help lawyers really grow great practices and have a great life. And one of the challenges that when you start to think about your future and think about your practice, a lot of lawyers get kind of hung up in the wrong question. They think about, okay, how do I have a more efficient life? How do I have more focused life? How do I have more billable hours? How do I make more money? And really the framework that we aim for is what is a great practice and what a great life looks like to you. Because if you have a great life and you're inspired by your life and you're excited by your life, building a great practice is easy. If you don't have a great life, then you're going to hang out in your practice because your life's not so great. And you see this happen with a lot of lawyers that become extreme workaholics and just kind of dedicate themselves to their firms. And you really want to start thinking, okay, if I want to have a great life and a great practice, what does that look like? So the question we play for is greatness, and greatness is defined by you. Now, how we help people is, number one, through group coaching programs. Our premier program is called the Practice Growth Program, which I love. We help people through one-on-one coaching, one-on-one consulting. So we have a lot of clients that work with us just on one-on-one part. Usually where everybody gets started with us is what we call a practice growth diagnostic, which is kind of like a stage 1, where am I at assessment. We also have a placement department, which is incredibly stupid cheap, which is called Build My Great Team. So it's about helping you find your next person. And we have all kinds of workshops like the Double Your Revenue workshop, building a practice for sales. So there's a lot of workshops. So there's a lot of ways that we help you with content. But at the end of the day, what we're really teaching lawyers is what I like to call strategic growth concepts to think about how to grow your practice and really have that great life that we mentioned. Today, we're wrestling with the conversation around what's your time worth. And I really am after more or less your ability to focus and think about how you can move your time forward. And there's usually 3 challenges that we have as attorneys. Number 1, we get what I call busy to live. And busy to live is where you just don't have time to think. You're overwhelmed. You're you're picking up your phone, dealing with emails first thing in the morning or texts. And it's like that all day. And you have no time to really think about anything. 2, one of the downsides of being busy alive is that you start to have, let's just say, early stages of burnout. And the early stages of burnout will lead to what I call chronic burnout. And chronic burnout doesn't show up like chronic burnout. It shows up as normal. You just get used to the pain. You just get used to the pain. You just think this is the way life is. And the downside with that over time is that your cognitive capabilities, your ability to think through complex problems, starts to decline. Not to mention that you get depressed and miserable, but you start to really lose your ability to solve complex problems. The third thing is that you don't really have a way to think out of the problem, because the thinking that created the problem is the thinking that you live in right now. So the practice that you designed is the practice that you're living in. So that's kind of the practice that you have, and you can't think out of the box because that's your box. So one of the challenges that we have when we think about time and time management is understanding the context that we've created for ourselves. So with that being said, the first thing that we start to wrestle with is I like to call the jelly bean jar problem, because if you're going to actually try and grow your practice or make changes in your practice, you have to create some room in your calendar. And if you don't have room in your calendar, what's going to happen is that you're going to feel this overwhelming sense where all you're trying to do is jam another thing in to do. So to actually grow the practice, one of the things that we have to think through is how to eliminate some of those to-do things. How do we reduce the pressure? And that's one of the things that we focus immediately on in our group programs is time and focus management strategies to try and reduce that pressure. What I'm going to do today is teach you 5 core basic strategies, and I'm going to give you a piece of homework to work on out of those 5 core strategies that you can do on your own. And if you want to, I can arrange for you to talk to someone about how you're doing with those core strategies. So to get here, one of the things I want you to think about is the distinction between legal skills and business skills. When you look at your legal skills, that's how you take care of a client. A business skill is how you design the experience of how you take care of a client. So a legal skill is getting that case managed. The business skills, creating the process around that for your client. And those two things combined create a profitable practice. Your leverage point over the years, about after 5 to 10 years practice, your leverage point actually becomes the business skills more so than legal skills. I think a lawyer after practicing about 10 years, they're about as good as they're going to get. Everything else after that point in time is kind of nuance. You get a little bit better at this, a little bit better at that, but you don't really drive the top line or bottom line revenues. So the business skills start to take over as the major leverage point for driving profit. Now, those 4 skills for driving profit rotate around really 4 things. Number 1, your ability to sharpen and manage your focus. And that's what we're going to talk about today. 2, the ability to attract high value clients, not any clients, but really great clients. 3, building a great team. Now, this is where most lawyers cap out. Their growth starts to cap because they can't figure out how to go as a solo small firm lawyer. They can't figure out how to go from about 4 to 6 employees. Sometimes they cap out at 10 to 12. My cap out number was 14. I just recorded a podcast with Craig Goldenfarb talking about his process of going from 1 employee to 70 employees. And each time it was a jump in managerial structure, data management structures. So as you get to a point, building a great team becomes about managing, leading, designing your process around your team, if that makes sense. And then cash flow and profitability. You got to understand your cash flow and profitability to buy all this stuff that we're talking about, right? So those are business skills. So one of the things I want to point out to you, and this is a slippery concept. I call this the success trap. And this happens over time. And this is what kind of makes you feel being cooked alive or busied alive, is that you want to grow your practice. So you start to add on more team, and more team actually creates more work and more complexity and sometimes more interruptions. And then we want to add on more referral sources. So more referral sources add greater complexity, greater interruptions, more stuff to do. And then you get more clients and more cases. And if you have cases and you litigate, the more cases you have in litigation, the more stuff you have to do. So the more you grow, the more stuff you have to do, the more interruptions you get. And this is why a lot of lawyers just kind of stop at a certain point in time, because the success traps their growth. The success actually traps their growth. They grow to a certain point in time. And they're like, I can't take any more of this. I just can't take anymore. It's one of the funny things in one of the workshops I teach is called Double Your Revenue. We do a couple of those a year. And usually some of the lawyers are like, I don't want to double my revenue. I don't want twice of what I got. Like, I don't want twice what I got. It's because they're thinking of what they got them there. Like, getting to the next level, they have to change your thinking, change your approach, change your strategies. So that's what we're going to attempt to do for a few minutes with these 5 time management strategies. And these are designed to be practical. like how to go do, like you should be able to take these and go do them. And you can watch a recording of this later if I'm talking too fast. Number one, this is a simple one. A lot of lawyers avoid it because it's simple. One is plan your day. And when I say that, I mean plan your day in writing, and don't be trapped by what Outlook says or your case management system says. Actually plan your day and take a step back. And I don't care if you use our planner, because those of you that are clients, we have the My Great Life Planner. Excuse me. I don't care if you use the planner. I got mine laying right here, wide open. So I don't care if you use the planner to plan it out. Or I don't care if you use a scrap piece of paper to plan it out. I don't care if you use a sticky note. What I'm going to ask you to do is spend what I call 15 minutes to focus. And 15 minutes to focus is to look at everything that you got to do for that day and say, what are the 3 most important things I have to get done for today? Because that requires you to prioritize and decide quickly what's the most important thing. If you don't have a lot of time, you don't have the luxury of planning your day, spend 5 minutes and just say, what are the top 3? Looking at my day, what are the top 3 things I have to get done today? And they may be something that you can delegate. They may be something that you can move, but those become your priorities immediately for the day. And so you have to kind of take everything from the to-do list, the returned phone calls, the emails, the things that your team are asking for, and distill your focus to the top 3. And then you can have a next 3, but you have to decide top 3, because if you go after everything, nothing gets done because you get overwhelmed. So this is a very simple strategy. It works so well that most lawyers won't do it, which is just sit down for 5 to 15 minutes and plan the day and pick your top 3. Strategy 2. This is one of my favorites. I've been using this one for like 20 years. I used it this morning like 3 or 4 times already this morning, which we like to call focusing sprints. A focusing sprint is where you shut your door, turn off your email, put your cell phone on silent, do whatever you need to do to create a little space of focus, and then focus for anywhere from 5 to 10 to 15 to 25 minutes. 25 minutes is the upper limit of this. Typically, there's studies show that you can go really hard for about 25 minutes, then you need to take a break, a 5-minute break. So what I do is I will set a timer. And if I got 25 minutes, that much, I'll use it. If I got 15, I'll use 15. But I'll set a timer and I'll work on one task for 15 minutes. I won't multitask. I won't work on anything else. But I can get so much done in a 15-minute sprint and a 15-minute focus. It's really, really a powerful tool. And I can't recommend this one enough. Everything will be fine. Your email will be fine. Your phone calls will be fine. The world will be fine. Facebook will be fine. The news will be fine. Just find 15 to 25 minutes to focus, to move your thinking along. Okay. Strategy 3, the power hour. Now, sometimes you have highly complex things that you have to deal with. And sometimes the best thing to do is kind of take the focusing sprint and expand it to an hour, but no more than an hour. The trick with setting a power hour is telling everyone that supports you, your team, everyone around you, that you're going to focus on one complex project for an hour. And what you're trying to do is move this thing along. So in 1 hour, you can probably get more done than in 5 hours of being constantly interrupted. So the power hour is taking the focusing sprint and moving it to the next level. Once again, I don't recommend more than an hour. Now, if I'm planning out my week or planning out my day, I'll look at my day and go, well, I can do a focusing sprint at this time, or I can do a focusing sprint at that time. And I'll literally put it in my calendar and say, okay, focusing sprint here or power hour here. So let's say 3 to 4 power hour 3 to 4, then I'll write in what I want to work on there. And so I'll literally like 3 to 4, I'm going to work on, the Abby Guerrero case. I'm going to work on that case. And the point of that is I'm trying to get work slotted. Now, if you don't put it in your calendar, someone will take that time from you because they think that you'll have a higher priority. You know, the client appointment, an assistant will try to get on there, associate may get on there, somebody may get on there. So as soon as you make the decision that you're going to put in a power hour, put it there. And one of the big things about being successful with your power hour is to communicate about your power hour. This is the big mistake I chronically make, which is I don't communicate. I'm going into production and I'm going to work on a power hour for a good hour, and I'm going to work on this thing. I will come back out for air in an hour. Just leave me alone for an hour, right? Let me focus. And this is also a great technique to teach your paralegals, your associates, anybody in a critical role in your firm that's responsible for production, because they need these times to work on it. And you have to honor the time, because if you want them to honor the time when you have a power hour, you want to make sure that you honor their power hour. Okay. Strategy 4. Strategy 4 is controversial. Protect your time off. Protect your time off and take time off. And time off for me is a 24-hour window with no email, no phone call, no reading journals, no legal work, no nothing. A 24-hour window. So 1 hour of no interruptions combined together for 24 hours, a complete day of time off. And this is important because the ability for you to rejuvenate and be creative and allow your brain to heal is correlated to the amount of time that you take off. Now, I know it's hard. If you're a solo, I know it's hard, but really you're going to kind of work yourself up to 1 day, to 2 days, to 3 days, to perhaps 4 days. It's not unusual for us when we start working with a lawyer to find out that they haven't taken a day off in a decade. That was my situation when I first came to Atticus as a client. I hadn't taken a day off for 10 years. And I really start to appreciate, after taking time off, that time off allowed me to be far more productive and far more creative. So if you've taken a time off and you come back in after a week or 2 weeks of vacation, you're a completely different, productive, focused human being. And it makes a huge difference in the practice that you can take this time off and really recover. So we usually recommend that if you look out over a year, that you go ahead and try and plan a year, time off a year in advance. So for me, I've got 2 kids in college. So the first thing I start with is my kids' calendar. The second thing I try and do is block off key vacations. Now, when I was actively practicing, I averaged 2 weeks a quarter. And I worked my way up from 2 hours a quarter to 2 weeks a quarter. So that didn't happen like in one year. Significant family events like weddings, things that you want to make sure that you're available for, and making time for you for health and wellness to make sure that you have time to really take good care of yourself. Because at the end of the day, it's a long marathon of practice. And what your clients are paying you for is your cognitive capabilities. And your cognitive capabilities are improved by exercise, time to recharge, meditation, some of the stress relieving techniques. Because at the end of the day, that's what they want. They don't want the paper you sell. They don't want you just going to court and beating on people. They want you to solve their complicated problems quickly and effectively. And that's really what they're after at the end of the day. Okay, the next one. Is plan out your marketing calendar for a year. And I'm going to give you a tool that we call the time template to talk about that in a minute. So one of the things that we've talked to lawyers about is marketing contacts per week. And our recommendation is 3 marketing contacts per week. And a marketing contact can be a coffee, can be a Zoom meeting, can be a phone call, anything where you're getting connected with the person. So an email for me is not a marketing contact. A newsletter is not a marketing contact. A blog is not a marketing contact. A marketing contact is either where you're talking to an existing referral source or a prospective referral source about working together or, whatever it may be. So usually for me, this is a person-to-person form of communication. So never, for me, I don't think you should get confused with a blog post as a marketing contact. Now, what we've discovered, and this study is probably 15 years old now, is that we discovered a lawyer that does 3 marketing contacts versus a lawyer that does 1 marketing contact will make about $50,000 a year more than the lawyer that does 1 marketing contact. So the activity is actually producing higher quality cases and more revenue. And if you're a solo small firm attorney, I usually recommend that you probably budget at least minimally 3 to 5 marketing contacts a week. Now, I did that by doing them all on Fridays. Usually I did what I call I called it Starbucks Fridays. So I'd just do back-to-back meetings at Starbucks. Had to drink decaf after the first 1 or 2 hours, but you know, it was a very, very productive day. And I was able to slot all my appointments in that day for marketing contacts. And I just rotated marketing contacts during the day. Some of my friends do breakfast and some of my friends do lunch. Well, unfortunately for me, when I was practicing, I lived in Tampa, great Cuban food. And I'm the type of guy that walks by Cuban bread and cafe con leche and I gained 10 pounds. So I had to eliminate some of the diet. I had to eliminate some of the food activities. Sometimes what I did was also have, I would host a happy hour for some of my referral sources to network and get together. So there's a lot of ways that you can do this, that you can increase your marketing contacts. But if I look out over a year, maybe you want to schedule a speaking commitments. Is there a season to your practice? There was some seasonality to my practice. Do you have a workshop schedule? And can you pre-slot those 3 marketing contacts per year? So if you look at your marketing and you look at your time management, what we're trying to move you to is more of a strategic, proactive focus than a reactive, which brings me to this tried and tested tool called the time template. Now, I'm giving you the short version of how to use the time template today because it's there's some process behind this. But this is really what I'd like you to write down, is just if you could on a piece of paper or something. Here's the question. You ready? What does a great week look like to me? What does a great week look like to me? And what I'd like you to do is write down just a couple of things for me, okay? And I'm going to get my notes just so I can look at what I wrote down this morning. So a great week for me, these are my examples, would be I get to exercise. I have time with my wife and kids. I have time to think and reflect and plan. I get home on time. That would be a great week if I get home on time. You know, for me, that was a big thing. So part of the question is, what would be a great week for you? And so that's the first question. What are the great week? And I call them the great week elements. Like, what are the elements of a great week? The second question is, what are the commitments that you're already committed to? So those will be client appointments, might be hearings, might be staff meetings. And you're going to take what would be a great week and the client commitments, and you're going to use those to think through how would you design a great week on an ordinary, I should say, on an average week. So if you're going to trial, if you're going to go somewhere, you know, it's kind of hard to do a template like this because, you know, a trial, unless you're trying something every week, which I sincerely doubt. But I get you to a position where you're starting to think, well, what's a great week look like? Now, here's the key to this. And I'm going to, you know, Abby's going to post the worksheet for you, and you can watch this later if you want. We got tons and tons of content around this. But you start to think through, well, what do I want to pre-plan in my week? Because if you notice here, we got things color-coded, all right? So color coding would here, green for me means client meetings. I like green, why? Because usually that means dollars. So I try and teach my team the green appointments are dollar appointments. Don't mess with the green appointments. Yellow for me might be a marketing appointment. You know, we see 2 dark blue ones for marketing. Friday's big purple, which means I probably got time off. And then I have 3 gray blocks for productivity here, meaning that I've got, these are production times. So what you're trying to do is teach your team how to organize your appointments and teach you and your team how to organize your week. So there's less chaos and less stress to the week, and you're trying to proactively pre-plan the week. Now, as a guy who's done this a lot and helped a lot of law firms do this, I'm going to tell you that is a process, all right? It is a process. The first time you do this and take it for a test drive, you'll learn, oh yeah, that was a rough draft of a great week. I'm going to have to revise it again. the key to this is the revision process between the first time and the second time, the third time and the fourth time and the fifth time, because each time you redesign what a great week looks like, you start to get better at organizing and thinking it through, and it becomes a very, very fabulous time management strategy. Because for me, my week has a structure to it. Client appointments occur during certain times. I don't have to discuss with anybody when they get scheduled, they get scheduled. Team meetings occur at a certain time, so I don't have to coordinate with everybody because they get scheduled. My marketing events and meetings occur at a certain time because they get scheduled. So all that kind of flows naturally for me and gives me a really beautiful rhythm to my week. So with that, that's the essence of the template, and we will give you the template. We post it in the chat box. And I just want to talk for a minute before we jump and call it a day about upcoming workshops and programs. And I'm going to bring Abby in for this. So Abby, let's talk for a minute, because I want you to post in the chat box. What do we have upcoming that you want to talk to people about?
Yeah, so we have a few workshops and webinars on our website, and I will post those in the chat box. Tomorrow, we have our lawyer referral marketing, how to cultivate relationships webinar. And we also have a workshop tomorrow, which is raising the bar, meet profit targets and finish the year strong. And then on Thursday, we have an attorney time management, your first step to financial success webinar. So those are the three that we have the rest of this week. And then on the website, we do have our webinars and workshops through the end of the year already listed. So you can also register for those as well. We do have a workshop on November the 18th. That is growth strategies for profitability. It's a tee up for 2023. And I do have a coupon code for that I will also put in the chat box, and that's 50% off. And that one is just mainly about growth strategies, proven growth strategies, and going into 2023 strong. And that one will be taught by Steve Riley and also Denise Gamis. So all of
that's more like, yeah, that workshop's more of a virtual workshop to plan for 2023, to shake loose some thinking and pre-planning 2023.
Yep.
At the core of this, one of the challenges that we all have as lawyers is to really take time to plan and think about what we want in our practice and what we want in our life. And the reason you hear me push you so hard for writing things and speaking about things is the most powerful thing that you have in your brain is your prefrontal cortex. And the prefrontal cortex is your problem-solving component of your brain. And to engage the prefrontal cortex, where your critical thinking skills hang out, they get engaged by speaking and writing. And that's how come when you get overwhelmed, the greatest technique you can do to unoverwhelm yourself is write and speak. So I'm just going to encourage you, if you can't make those workshops, and we have a ton of them happening right now, to at least sit down and say, what are the 10 most important goals for 2023? What am I really trying to plan out for 2023? Because then it starts your field of vision, and it starts your brains pivoting and looking for solutions to those goals. If you don't state the goal, the brain won't look for it. The brain does care less about your future. Your brain is designed to do one thing and one thing alone, which is to keep you alive. It doesn't care about your happiness. It doesn't care about your future. It just wants to keep you alive. That's why it hates change. It doesn't like exercise. It's just about keeping you alive. That's all it's wired for. So everything else is learned behavior, so you can put it to work for you. So that's one of the reasons written goal setting is so critical. With that, Abby, I think we're right at the happy hour, the end of the day for this, for me being done with this webinar. Are there any questions or any thoughts that anyone has?
Steve,
Yes.
This is Terry.
Hey, Terry.
Stephen War had a question. He wants to know, he's talking about the time template. How does this work for a solo? If a potential client calls or emails, he feels like he needs to drop everything and talk to that client, or they're going to find another attorney. What's your advice?
Who asked the question?
Stephen War.
Okay, so Steve, when you say solo, I'm looking for Steve on here. Hey, Steve. Hey, Steve, when you say solo, it's just you, no staff, right?
Well, I have some staff, but I'm the only.
Okay, that's great. So if it's so the thing that I would recommend is that this is also a training issue, okay? So if you get a prospective lead, you're going to have to, a prospective client, I want you to talk to your team in advance about when to schedule the prospective client phone call. All right. So if you're going into a power hour, if you're going to do some focusing sprints, if you're going to do something where you're working with someone, and I totally get the drop everything and try and get the live one in the door. I've been there, done that. But if you say, you know, Steve's not available right now, but Steve would like to talk to you, so I'm going to schedule an appointment for you and Steve to talk at this time. And so let's say 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock. And so you want to teach your team how to handle those prospective leads if you're not available, and just pre-slot appointments. And I usually like a 15-minute appointment with a prospect, because if it's more than 15 minutes, you're getting into analysis. And I don't like my lawyers to get into analysis. Does that make sense, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah, what I want to do is get them in the door. What type of practice do you have?
Intellectual property, mostly trademarks.
Oh, beautiful. That's beautiful, Steve. That's a great practice. So for you, it's not a crisis. You know what I mean? So we're not having somebody who's just served or someone that's being divorced or anything like that. So it's not like an emergency room. So we can pre-schedule that. So if I set up an appointment with a prospect, I would ask my assistant to send them 2 or 3 things via email so they can be ready for that meeting. And so the purpose of the meeting, depending on your process, may be to convert them into a consult, or maybe, you know, are you doing free consults, Steve? I don't want to break this down too much. But are you doing free consults, or what are you doing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Free
Okay.
consults.
Okay, so what we want to do is say, hey, so I would have my assistant send them an email saying, hey, this is confirmed that you're getting a free consult with Steve for 30 minutes and such time. And on that consult, you want to be prepared to discuss X, Y, and Z. Attach this information, Steve's bio. Here's some information about trademarks, and here's some really cool stuff about intellectual property that Steve talks about in the video. And so what you're trying to do is get them to a point where when they're on the call, you're not doing as much pre-education. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, good. Does that help, Steve? Am I answering your question?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, good. Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Terry. Any other questions or issues that you guys want to post? I don't want to go after Steve War too much more than I already did. And anything else? All right. All right. So that's wonderful, Abby. So what we'll do is bring this to a close for today. And we'll have this available, because I know I talked about a lot. I went very, very quickly. So we'll have this available if you want to rewatch it and take apart any of the strategies. And as Abby said, we've got some upcoming programs that are all fabulous this week. If you haven't planned on coming to the summit this year, is a great time. And I'm teaching a wonderful workshop called Double Your Revenue. It's the only time I'll probably teach it. I'm thinking for the next 6 to 9 months. And it's just a wonderful day of talking through how you take your practice from where it's at today, revenue-wise, to 2 times. And we've been doing this for about 20 years. It's a fun course. It's one of my favorite things to teach. And with that, Abby, I'm going to call it a day.